Boris, welcome back to the podcast. Remind everybody who you are and what you do.
Hey, Andy. Thank you for having me back. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Boris Milinkovich. I'm the owner, chief instructor, and author at True North Tradecraft. We're a Canadian resiliency security / disaster preparedness consultancy out of Toronto. So we do a bunch of stuff out here, and it's back on the Secure Dad podcast. I'm very happy to be back.
Yeah, man, it's funny. Like you kind of stumble when you try to explain to people what you do.
Yeah.
I do the same thing because it's like, oh, I talk about home security, but then I also talk about online safety, and then I talk about like scam prevention and stuff. So like, yeah, like I get that same thing. I was like, man, how do I really tell the average person what I do? So I identify with you there.
I've kind of tried to narrow it down to two sayings. One, that we help ordinary people get out of dangerous or stressful situations, and the second one is that we cultivate resilience. And so, with the mix of those across the various skill sets, that's what we kind of dip our toes into.
Very good. Yeah, I just tell people I help families live safer, happier lives. And they're like, oh, okay.
There you go.
And that doesn't sound scary. That doesn't sound scary at
No.
all. So, like, of course, everybody wants to be nice. So, like, Boris, you have had like a wealth of experience in your life. You've done so many different things. What inspired your latest book, Travelcraft, that I actually have right here? What inspired this book?
Oh, look, we're besties. We're twinning.
Yeah.
So I guess it was my natural progression, I guess, from my previous books. I started out with the disaster preparedness guide. That moved on to a book about personal security, because I was like, okay, well, dealing with disasters and stuff. But then when you're out on the street, how do you keep yourself safe? So that became a new book, Negative Space. And then I revisited the disaster prep kind of sphere, because people were like, well, that's all well and good that you're talking about what to do to prepare your home. But at the same time, what do we do when we have to leave because there's a wildfire or a flood or
Right.
something like that, or a storm? So then I wrote Gut Checks and Go Bags, which is kind of the next progression of the disaster prep stuff, going mobile because of the circumstances. And so then I was like, okay, that's done. And I travel a fair bit, and I'm always looking for what the best practices are that have kept me safe and that I've learned through experience. And as the world gets a little dicier every day and a little more uncertain, I wanted to put that into a book. And so Travelcraft was born, and I started kind of working on that for about a year to get it done. And with some trips during that writing period, so that I could kind of pressure test everything that I was doing. So some short, some long, international stuff and domestic, and wanting to make sure that I had everything nicely organized for people that potentially don't have any travel experience, but also that it's valuable to people who do travel on the regular, and maybe because they've been doing the same thing over and over again, they forget what some of the basics are, or maybe a updated version of what the best practice is that they have forgotten about because it's just automatic, and maybe they've been doing it a way that is that leaves gaps. So for all those things, that's what motivated me to do Travelcraft as a book, and it's been really well received, and I'm very, very proud of it, very happy with it, and that's I'm glad you have a copy of it, and I really hope that you're enjoying it.
Yeah, man, I am. By the way, I actually have a copy of Negative Space over here on my shelf next to me. Really, really enjoyed that book. So for anybody, we're going to talk about Travelcraft, but if you want another one by Boris, Negative Space is really, really good. Highly recommend that one. So going back to the travel thing, Boris, like, what do parents need to know to be safe on a trip, but also still have fun? What is it that parents need to understand?
So as a parent myself, these are the ways that I've kind of done things. Is you have to be, as a parent, hyper aware. It's not just like, you go to the grocery store and you turn around, your kid's gone, you're like, oh my God, where the hell did they go? It's, you really have to be switched on, and you have to cultivate kind of an orbit with your kids that they can go do little things, or you don't have to always hold their hand, but they should be kind of orbiting nearby you. Like, and
Mhm.
they should be paying attention to you. So if you start walking, they should start walking, right? And vice versa. So keeping proximity, eye contact, like having the kids on your radar always. And it's a good practice when they're little to hold their hands and stuff like that, right? It's creating that bond between the kids and the parents, but at the same time, you're holding on to your kid, right? So you have an active grip on them, and they're secure. The other thing would be that you have simple emergency plans with your kids. So if we get separated, what do you do? Right?
Mhm.
Nowadays, kids younger and younger have a cell phone. There's
Mhm.
a lot of ways to have apps or tracking and stuff like that with your kid. So as long as they have their cell phone, you generally know where they are, right? And you can call them, you can message them, you can FaceTime them, whatever. So if they have a device that they can be plugged into you and that they know if the phone rings, if mom or dad calling, answer the phone. Okay.
Mhm.
But with that, even more important, because you can lose a phone can get dropped into water, you can, battery runs out, whatever. The most important thing is just having a plan, simple plan. So if we're separated, where do we go? Okay, we go back to the front entrance and we wait. Okay.
Mhm.
Ask the security guard or the police officer there or whomever, Um, generally, uh, if kids get separated and there's no fixed point, have them find, ideally, a mother and a kid,
Mhm.
and go and
Mhm.
ask them and just be like, hey, I've lost my parents, right? If you're in a foreign country, becomes a little more difficult because there might be a
Mhm.
language barrier there.
Right.
Uh, but in one of the things I talk about in my book Travelcraft is that everybody, as long as like your kids are a couple of years old and they have some level of conversational language skills, you should be able to teach them a couple of words in a different language and
Mhm.
practice that with them. So I'm lost, or help me, or whatever. It's something like that in the language of the country that you're going to visit, and have them know that. And, while you're getting ready and packing your bags, what happens if we get separated in the museum? I'm going to
Mhm.
go to the front door again, or I'm going to go find someone in a uniform, or I'm going to go find another family somewhere, right? And say, I need help. Have them memorize your phone number, things like that. So having an emergency plan that they can action at a very basic level, so that you can connect with them.
Yeah. That's all fantastic stuff, man. I really like the idea of if you get separated, one, you talk about it in advance so it's not scary. It's like, "Oh, I know what to do. I'm gonna go look for somebody in a uniform." We taught my kid, look for somebody who has a name tag, that sort of
Mhm.
thing. Like, if you're in a big place like a Disney World or something like that, obviously, people on the street in, like, Prague are not gonna have name tags on. But, like,
Sure.
that sort of stuff to say, "Okay, I have this problem. I'm separated from mom and dad. It's panic, but I now know to do this. I now know how to ask for help." And that's got to be empowering to children, right?
It is like, that coupled with them having bits of information that are useful to someone who's going to help them. If they're really young and they don't have the wherewithal for a lot of things, you can print out like an information card, and
Mhm.
that
Yep.
they keep with their little bag or whatever, right? Um, and they know to show this to someone wearing a uniform, or like you say, wearing a name tag. Like, let's say you're in a big store somewhere, and you
Mhm.
get lost in the toy section, right? Well, you're right. Finding someone with a name tag or that looks kind of official is a good way to start. They can make an announcement or whatever, right? Um, but having a little information card, and maybe a photocopy of their passport, and that gets folded up in their little pouch or whatever, and they carry that with them kind of all the time. And they just need to know to show that to someone for help.
Got it.
And on those pieces of paper, you can write like mom phone, and
Mhm.
dad phone, and stuff like that, email address, whatever. Um, so those bits of information are very important, for everybody to be aware of, and that the kids have access to. Another thing that you could consider doing is tagging your kid with like an
Hmm.
air tag or something like that. Parents do that. I've seen parents do it. Um, but you can dump that into their little pouch as well or whatever. Like, you know, have something your kids can carry, either a little backpack or a little fanny pack or whatever. It makes them feel important because they have their stuff. But at the
Hmm.
same time, you can load that with items that are going to be helpful in an emergency like that. So
Yep.
yeah, put that into their jacket or into that pouch or whatever. Make sure it's working, and then you can track them down. Right. Another thing uh, that helps a lot is if the kid gets lost and you don't have a kind of rally point or a place for them to go that's prearranged because you're in a
Hmm.
city or something like that. There's no real place that you can say meet here if we get lost, is to just stop.
Mm.
So because if you've got everybody looking for one another, you're not necessarily going to find one another. Because if I'm walking down the street and I realize my kid somewhere disappeared back here, I'm gonna go back. But the
Right.
kid's like, oh, where'd my parents go? And they go this way. And I,
Hmm.
totally miss them. So if you realize that you've split up and you don't have a place to go or a landmark, like, oh, if we get lost walking around, go to that fountain over there, right?
Hmm.
Can't miss the fountain because it's huge, right? So
Right. Right.
anywhere we get mixed up, that's going to be the place that we're going to go, and we're going to look for each other around that fountain. Okay. Uh, hard to miss it. There you go. Easy, easy peasy. But if you don't have that, then stay put, because then at least you can kind of try and retrace your steps, and just, being in one location is easier to find somebody than it is constantly, a moving target. So same
Hmm.
thing, like if you've done any kind of wilderness survival stuff and whatever, it's like if you're lost in the woods, best thing to do is just stop,
Right.
because if
Right.
rescuers are coming, they're going to be trying to track you down because you keep moving, right? And
Hmm.
that's wasting time versus stop, set yourself up for a rescue, or take shelter and whatever. But that would be the best way to do it. Just, if we get separated, either there's a landmark that you've identified, or stay put, and then we'll find each other.
Right. I like that a lot because a lot of times, in the wilderness or even on a public street, your kid's going to go, well, I think they were going this way, and they go off some area that you'd never intended to go. So I like the
Yep.
idea, stop, stay right there. We'll come find you at that point. So that's really good. I like that.
Yeah, and
So,
and another good part is if you can, a lot of streets, a lot of cities and stuff like that nowadays have, on the sidewalks, like big planters, like
mhm,
concrete
yeah.
planters along the
Mhm,
sidewalks. Um, one of the things is you can have your kid do is climb up on the planter and be above the crowd,
yeah,
and they can
it's
stand
great.
there. They can scan for you, and you can also scan for them, because if they're higher above the crowd sticking out, and vice versa, right? Like if you're walking down, that this boulevard has planters and your kid's going to climb up, well, you can do the same. And now suddenly you're looking at each other, and,
Mhm,
you find each other more easily. These are all variations on a theme, right? So
mhm,
if you find something that works for your environment, that's what, you should go with. And that's going to change, depending on where you are, what city, the time of year, all those sorts of things. So when you get on ground to where you are, before you guys head out, or when you're kind of doing your own thing in a market or whatever, just say, okay, everybody, if we get separated, okay, meet at this place. Or everybody, you're wearing a watch, get your kids to wear a watch so they can tell time. And
right.
it's like, okay, in when this watch reads, 1 o'clock, we meet in this spot. See that,
Mhm,
that fountain or whatever. We'll meet there in 45 minutes. And then your kids can go and do, depending on how old they are and how comfortable you are with that sort of stuff, sometimes put the siblings, and the siblings will go together and they're
mhm.
looking out for one another. But um, those types of small plans, they don't have to be intricate. They need to be simple, and they need to be actionable immediately.
Got it. I like it. Boris, I don't know about you, but I see a lot of videos, especially reels on Instagram, of people who make these hotel safety videos about, oh, this is what I do every time I go. And it's the stupidest stuff I've ever seen in my life. So please tell us now, what are some good hotel safety tips?
A lot of people take for granted the level of security and safety that your hotel room provides.
Mm-hmm.
Um, it's like, oh, I locked it and I've got my room key. So once I lock the door, it's like nothing can possibly happen. But what you forget, or what people don't know, is that all those room keys are accessible to the hotel staff.
Right.
If you end up going to, well, I guess not so much doesn't really matter where you're going, but it's always possible that those people can get compromised. Um, and they can, sell a copy of your key
Mm-hmm.
to, nefarious people, ne'er-do-wells, so to speak. Um, and so what I would suggest is that you carry a door wedge. I carry two rubber
Mm-hmm.
door wedges.
Yep.
Um, those I place in the door frame and on the bottom of the door, so that if someone is able to open the door, you have a fair amount of, I guess, warning and buffer before they can actually get in, and allowing you to do something about it, or at least take some steps to better your situation. Um, there are there are videos like the ones you just mentioned on Instagram and stuff like that, and YouTube, where people use what's known as an underdoor tool, and it's
Mm-hmm.
like a wire with a
Mm-hmm.
cable on it, and it will go under the door of the hotel room, and they kind of walk it over, and it's over the door handle, and the door handle's a lever because they have to be for fire
Right.
code.
Mm-hmm.
So they come over, and then they just pull on the cord, and it opens the door, or the handle, unlocking the door, and then they push it in and they gain access. Now, um, I mean, we teach that in our covert entry class when we run them. Next one coming up this fall. But um, one way to stop that from happening is you take your kind of a towel from your
Mm-hmm.
bathroom, roll it up, and you put it in between the handle and the door. And that way, that when they walk that wire over, they can't get it into that space between the handle and the door.
Right.
It's a very effective. It doesn't cost you anything. You don't have to carry it with you. It's just you
Right.
get into the hotel room, you grab a towel, and you toss it in there, and it's very effective. So some hotel rooms have like shrouds and stuff like that that are already built in,
Mm-hmm.
but like over the door handle and whatnot, and they are designed to prevent that kind of attack. But basically, it's like you throw the towel in, and a door wedge, or one of the alarmed door wedges. Also, they're available on Amazon and stuff like that. Though, if someone
Mm-hmm.
opens the door, presses down on the door wedge, and it emits an alarm.
Right.
But those two things are my go-to, along with having a flashlight on your night table. You don't know, depending on where you are in the world, how reliable the grid is there. So you
Sure.
might experience power failures kind of on the regular. Um, it's always good to have a flashlight, and most problems are gonna manifest at night. So darkness, you're in a better situation as long as you have some light to shine on the situation.
Right. No, that's good stuff, man, and that's practical things, and that's something that I actually do in a hotel. My sometimes my family looks at me funny, and I'm like, "It's trust me, it's okay. We're gonna do this. It's all right. We'll be okay
They,
without one towel."
yeah, exactly. Yeah, and you can always ask for more, right? That's not the
Right.
problem. It's
Yeah.
like,
Right.
yeah, and even if you just ask for more right off the bat when you're checking in, be
Mm-hmm.
like,
Mm-hmm.
especially if you're with your family, they understand they're gonna, like, all those towels are gonna be gone in the first 3 minutes. So you
Right.
just, when you check in, you just say, hey, can we get a whole new set of towels right off the bat, so that we're not calling you later, and
Right.
it's never a problem.
Yep. That's a good idea. I like that.
Yeah.
Um, so you talk about this a couple of times in your book, but what are some of the common mistakes that you see travelers making that can affect their safety?
My thing is that you just talk too much. People talk too much.
Yeah.
They tell everybody
Yeah.
about,
Hmm.
who they are, what they're doing there, where they plan to go. Oh, we have tickets to the theater tomorrow night at 7. Oh, we're staying at this hotel. Oh, oh, you guys want to, someone will say, oh, we should grab some drinks. You're from out of town, blah, blah, blah. And they say, oh, yeah, well, we're just in room, 504 or whatever. It's like,
Hmm.
nobody needs to know that. Keep your mouth shut about it. Like, nobody needs to know what your plans are. You're not like, if you're making friends or whatever, then tell them, okay, we'll meet you at this neutral public location at a
Sure.
certain
Hmm.
time. You
Hmm.
don't you don't have to tell them where you're staying. You can be vague about it. What do you do for a living? Depending on where you are in the world, that may put a target on your back, right?
Sure.
Um, Depending on what country you're from, uh, increases the value of your person, in general, because your passport's worth a lot on the black market.
Yeah.
And when you're stepping into an environment where that may become part of a black market trade, it's it's like two people, three people, four people having valuable passports. Sure, they're, someone's going to mug you for them. So you don't need to flash that information out. Also, flashing wealth. So if
Hmm.
you're wearing a lot of expensive, like, looking jewelry and, like, really flashy brands, if you're
Hmm.
wearing, like, carrying a Dior purse or something like that, like, you're looking you're looking to have a target placed on you. So when you travel, sure, you want to have nice things, but you don't have to be ostentatious about it and flat, like, rubbing in everybody's face.
Hmm.
Um, you know, uh, Fewer labels, that sort of stuff. But you don't have to tell everybody who you are, what you're doing, and when you're doing it, and where you're
Right.
staying, and that sort of stuff. So that's probably one of the most common, highest impact mistakes people make, is that they just talk too much about their personal lives and what their plans are. Um, and with that is stuff like people posting on social media
Hmm.
that I'm on vacation, I'm flying away now. If someone can find out where you live, they know that your house is now empty because you're in
Yes, sir.
Portugal or wherever, right?
Hmm.
So, um, like, when I was on a trip earlier, I did all my pictures and videos and stuff like that for social media, but I didn't post anything until I got back. And then I came back and I had already been back for a week, and then I started posting about it, and people were like, "Oh my God, you're in this town." It's like, I was 3 weeks ago.
Yeah. Yeah.
But, and that's all well and good, but it's safer that way, because if anyone's like, "Oh, well, he's not, home or whatever." Well, yeah, I am. And now I'm just posting. So, that would be my kind of, my advice on the common mistakes people make. And, simply just talk less, be more vague about who you are and what you're doing and what your plans are. And don't flash wealth, don't flash cash,
Yeah.
right?
Hmm.
Expensive watches and jewelry and stuff like that, and brands.
Hmm.
Um, it's just going to put a target on your back. It's better to try and blend in with the local population and use, local small denominations when you're doing stuff.
Hmm. No, I like that. I heard for men it was like signs of wealth or the nice sunglasses that you're wearing or the watch that you have on. And people were just saying, hey, just take a cheap travel watch, that sort of thing that will,
Yeah.
not look so flashy.
There's a difference between wearing something like a watch that's a tool watch or something like that, that
Hmm.
will get the
Hmm.
job done and that is robustly built, but isn't um, like a luxury watch.
Right.
So it all comes down to what your personal uh, risk appetite is. But at the same time, it's like, maybe this is the watch that I wear 24/7 and I never take it off and I don't care where I'm going. Okay. And if someone wants to take it off me, then I am going to have to decide whether or not I want to deal with that situation
Hmm.
and, giving them a watch or walking away. So, um, but, are you willing to part with it, when someone pulls a knife or a gun on you, you know?
Yeah.
But generally it's like, if you're going to a safe place, I mean, safe is a relative term, right? People get mugged in your own town all the time, or,
Yeah. Yeah.
shot or whatever. So it's a relative term. The reason that it's more more of a risk is because you're not in a familiar environment. So you may not understand the ebb and flow of how things go in that environment. In
Sure.
your town, I stay away from this neighborhood because when the sun
Right.
goes down,
Right.
bad things happen in that neighborhood. But you may not
Hmm.
know that when you go on a vacation and you're walking along and you're like, "Oh, this is a pretty street and the sun's up." By the time you get down there, you come out of the restaurant and you walk
Hmm.
down this other street. Now it's dark, and locals are just like, "You don't go there because this is a bad area."
Hmm.
So that's why when you travel, you're at a disadvantage because you don't know the ebb and flow and the local information that the people that live there would know.
And I'm glad you brought up the point about, a restaurant that might be, in a unsavory part of town, because it seems like the best restaurants are in, like, the worst part of town when you
Yeah.
travel. Everybody's like, "Oh, go here, it's great." And I'm like, "Oh, the place with no streetlights. Oh, okay. Is the best tacos in town? All right, I'm willing to risk
Yep.
it." But, like, we'll take a cab there and we'll take a cab out, that sort of
And
thing.
exactly. So I mean, you kind of learn that from either asking like a quasi trusted local, so like the
Mhm.
concierge at your hotel or something like that, um, or doing your own research in advance. So
Right.
in Travelcraft, I broke it up into kind of three sections: kind of pre-travel, while you're
Mhm.
traveling, and then post-travel, and best practices for all of them. But wherever you're going, you should take some time to do research on where you're going, what the local customs are, what the local environment is, all this sort of stuff. So you have a clue so you don't misstep where you easily could have avoided it, did some research.
Right. Yeah, no, fantastic points. So, Boris, I'll ask this. Like, I know that you've traveled a lot, you've written a book on travel. Kind of share with me about a time where something went wrong on one of your trips and how you responded to that.
My wife and I took our daughter to a summer program uh, overseas, a school summer program, and um, everything was good. We went there, we dropped her off. Life was great, and we're heading to the airport. And the night before we're supposed to fly out, uh, we're repacking and stuff like that. And my wife goes to take her passport out of her bag, and it catches on the zipper of her bag, and it
Mhm.
tore the cover off the
Uh-huh.
pages, right? And they're still attached mostly, right? But it's just
Mhm.
kind of weird. And we're
Right.
like, okay, well, just a little bit of Scotch tape, fix that right up, right? Okay, so we get we get to the airport, and they're like, "Oh, this is coming apart. Yeah, we can't accept this."
Uh-huh.
We're like,
Oh,
"What do you mean you can't accept this? It's the passport's right there. Here's mine. The tickets, it's the same thing. Here's our spare
right.
photocopy of the passport, right? It's still valid. There's no damage to the card, like the info card or anything. It's just the stitching." They're like, "No, we're making a judgment call as the airport man or airline manager at the airport. We're not accepting this. So you need a new passport."
Mhm.
And it's like, what the hell? Um, so one of the things that I recommend people do is that when you go to get your passport made,
Mhm.
right? You get a new passport or whatever,
Mhm.
or before you travel, if you don't have it, um, go get a couple of passport photos sized for your passport. So
Mhm.
in my case, I have a Canadian passport. When I got my passport made and my family's passports made, um, I don't just get the two that you need for the passport application. I get two more. Okay.
Mhm.
And then we carry those with us on the trip. So what
Okay.
happened was we had to go and we had to go to the Canadian embassy, got there first thing in the morning, uh, sh- showed them what problem was and told them what the issue was. We missed our flight, like they wouldn't let us
Right.
board.
Sure.
So that was a bit of a nightmare. And so basically we went there, filled out a bunch of forms, paid the fee, and then they're like, "Do you have two passport photos? Because we can't issue you a temporary emergency passport unless we have." And it's like,
Mhm.
as a matter of fact, I do.
There you go.
And they're like, "Oh, because otherwise you'd have to go to this other place way across town. That's the only other place that does
Mhm.
Canadian sizing for passport
Mhm.
photos. And they don't open for a couple of hours and all this sort of stuff." It's like, okay, well, I have them.
There you
And
go.
they're like, and it's the same picture from the passport that I'm giving them.
Sure. Mhm.
And I also had a photocopy of the passport from when, like, intact and everything. So they're like, "Oh, this is fantastic. Okay, we can get on this right away." 6 hours later, we had an emergency passport.
That's awesome.
And with that, we were able to go back to the airport and uh, book. two new tickets and for the
Hmm.
following day and stuff like that. So we had a delay of basically 24 hours.
Right.
It was a really stressful 24 hours. It cost,
Hmm.
um, and whatnot. But the key kind of takeaway from this is that had I not had those preparations in place, and they don't take a lot, but had I not had them, I would have had to spend at least the rest of that day trying to get two little passport photos, by which time getting back to the embassy, they would have been almost closed. So they wouldn't have started working on it till the following day, which would have been the whole other day. And then I would have flown out. So
Hmm.
and that's under the best circumstances. This
Right.
was in London. So
Hmm.
everything was like very smooth, and they had everything. They had the resources to be able to do this. But um, if you're in a country where they don't have those kinds of resources, or
Right.
let's say you're in a country where your government does not have an embassy, you have to go to an allied embassy. So let's say as a Canadian, I can go into a British or an Australian or New Zealand embassy, and I can ask for consular services because we're Commonwealth countries that have reciprocal agreements for that sort of stuff. They can help me. But if I don't have the bits that they need from the get-go, that delays everything. So
Hmm.
having those types of things with you and accessible and accurate, they don't cost a lot. They just require a little bit of forward planning. They can really help smooth over all the problems that you might end up having, and can expedite, resolution of those problems.
Yeah, I like that. Go ahead and have everything that they're gonna need ready to go so that when you walk
Yeah.
in, it's like, "Oh," and, like, I'm sure the person who was like, "Oh, I'm glad you have these photos," were like, "Oh, I'm definitely gonna help these people. Look how prepared they were." That helps
They
them, makes everything easier for them to help you.
I think a big portion of that is also don't not also coming in with the right attitude. It's like, "Listen,
Sure.
can
Yeah.
you help us, please?" Not like, "I'm a
Mhm.
taxpayer, I demand this," and stuff like that.
Right.
Like, chill, right? Just chill. Like, these people,
Mhm.
and they said, "Listen, we'll try and get this done for you today, but we can't promise that." And, it's like, "Well, I need this done now." Well, if, you know, do what you can, be reasonable for you so that they can be reasonable for you as well, right? If you're yelling and screaming at them or whatever, they're going to go back to their home at the end of the day anyways. They don't really care. It's just, you know, be as polite and humble about,
Mhm.
getting help. Uh, yeah, that may be their job, but sometimes they can make it easier or make it more difficult depending on your attitude. So just go in with a really, really good attitude, knowing that they're doing their best, and support them in what they're trying to do for you.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah, that's fantastic, yeah, because nobody wants to help someone who is, not being gracious if you're panicked, that's one thing, but if you've just got a bad attitude, that's a choice, that
Yeah,
sort of
and that's a
thing.
big
Yeah,
difference. That's a big difference. Yeah.
right.
So yeah, that's one of the things that went wrong. But with a trip I've been on, but the having the right preparations and stuff like that, and the right information, knowing where your embassy is before
Mhm.
before you get there,
Yep.
and having that marked down, those are important pieces of information. And I have checklists in the book about things that you should know as you're going to a
Mhm.
foreign country.
Right. So speaking of foreign countries, what do people need to think about when it comes to emergency planning when they're traveling internationally?
So, having some kind of, I guess, travel insurance, but there's different kinds of
Mhm.
travel insurance. I mean, there's travel insurance for missing a flight and stuff like that deal with the tickets and the money side of things. But there's also travel insurance that speaks to your safety. And so there are companies out there that will, um, they can extract you from a
Right.
security situation or from a natural disaster. If you have a medical emergency, they can repatriate you back to your own country, or to any other country for medical treatment, if it's not uh, suitable in the country that you're traveling in. So they're making sure that you have the appropriate coverage for things like that should they go wrong,
Mhm.
but also having means. So if you're traveling somewhere, you should not just have just enough to get through your budgeted trip. You should
Mhm.
think, what happens if I have to totally rebook everything? So when I was in London,
Mhm. Yeah.
I needed two brand new tickets. Yeah, like I couldn't get home otherwise. But you have to budget for, what if I'm going to have to get 2 new tickets and like up to a week
Mhm.
of hotels? Do I have that
Yeah.
means available to me? If you don't, you need to seriously consider, what is your plan if something goes terribly wrong? Like losing your passport. What if you get robbed and you lose your passport, right?
Right.
Um, what if you get injured and you end up at a hospital, right? And you have to stay there for another week, like all kinds of stuff. So you think about, what do I have? And make sure that whatever coverage you have from an insurance standpoint covers you for those things, is what the claim procedure is, so that like if something happens, who do you call? How is this going to work and stuff like that? And you work it out with them. But also having access to funds for an emergency.
Mhm.
That's probably one of the most important things. And then having some on you as well when you travel. Again, not flashing a lot of cash
Right.
all over the place, but having enough to get in a cab and get across town, or, 2 towns over or something if something bad happens. Walking into a hotel without a reservation, just having cash and just, I need a room for the evening
Mhm.
because something bad has happened, right? So, um, that's what I mean. Like that's probably the most important thing.
Right. Ed Calderon has said multiple times that money solves problems, and
Big
if you've
time.
got problems, you're gonna have to solve them, you know?
That's exactly it. That's exactly it. And if you if you're planning like a big trip and stuff like that, and you're paying for all this stuff and it's an expensive trip, if you can't add on that emergency backup to it,
Mm.
that
Mhm.
cash insurance, reconsider your trip.
Yeah.
Because if you're putting all the expense in anyways and something goes wrong and then you can't get home, like, if you can't drop another $3,000-4,000 for plane tickets to return you home in an emergency, then you probably shouldn't be going on that trip,
Mm.
right?
Mhm.
Especially if you have family, like if you've gone somewhere and you got family back home and there's a family emergency, and suddenly they're like, "Well, we can't change your flight. You're gonna have to buy a new ticket." You
Right.
can't rely on arguing with an airline or something like that. You might have to book with another airline because maybe the one you booked only flies on Tuesdays and Thursdays, and you got to get home on a
Hmm.
Saturday. So
Right.
like those things happen, and having that those means is very important. You're right. Ed's right. Cash solves a lot of problems. Putting cash in someone's hand can open a lot of doors, literally and figuratively for you.
Absolutely. So we've kind of talked about, not flashing cash and things like that. For people who are traveling, what are the most common scams that people are encountering, being a tourist?
Um, Oftentimes, it's like that taxi scam where someone picks you up at the airport, or a taxi comes in and they're like, okay, you don't check how much the rate is or how much it's going to cost to
Mm.
get to a certain place. And then they demand an exorbitant amount of money. And they say, well, if you're not paying me, I'm going to call the police and all this sort of stuff. Right. So it's kind of an extortion scam. Um, Best way to kind of deal with that is understand that they understand you, so that there's no language barrier, and have an agreed upon price if it's a flat rate,
Mhm.
or know that the meter is running, right? Make sure they turn on the meter and it starts at 0,
Mhm.
and you're
Sure.
you're following it, and that you keep an eye on it, that sort of stuff. So cabs are generally really, really scammy, right?
Mhm.
Especially unlicensed ones. Some cities have ones that they're licensed very particularly, and
Right.
your research will show like these ones are licensed. They won't rip you off because they're regulated by the government and stuff like that. So that works. You can use Uber or whatever, or other companies like that. Just your safety will always be a priority in those. So there's like the scam for money, but at the same time, knowing that you shouldn't be getting into a cab or something like that drunk on your own type thing.
Yeah.
Like,
Mm.
um, know that you can get out of the cab when you get into it. I carry an escape tool where I can shatter the glass if
Mhm.
I get into a
Mhm.
cab and they lock me in, things like that. So those would be that scam, along with the kind of I have a free gift for you. So sometimes in like really touristy areas, somebody will come up and there'll be like a little thing, like a pair of sunglasses or like a handicraft or something. They'll come up to you and say, here, I'm giving you a free gift. Oh, okay, great. Thanks. And you take it and you walk away because the guy just said, I'm giving you a free gift.
Right.
Well, they follow you for a block and they're like, hey, you didn't pay me for that.
Mm.
You owe me, €20 or whatever. And it's like, whoa, man, like you just said this is a free gift. Well, no. Now you have to pay. You took it. So that means and so it's a scam where they're like, okay, now we'll call the police because you're stealing my thing from me. So that's another common scam. If someone wants to give you something for free, it's not free. Okay. So
Right.
they're not standing there giving stuff out for free. So you just say, no, thanks. No, thanks. The less engagement you have, oftentimes is going to be beneficial to you as well, because those types of engagements sometimes are distractions for someone to come and pickpocket you. So while someone's waving something, oh, this is free, let me give you a gift, somebody's picking your pocket and walking off with it.
Right. Yeah.
So keeping your wits about you. But those two are very common.
Yeah. No, that's great. And I feel like you can find that lots of different places in the world. It's not like, oh, this is just common to this one country. No, you're probably going to find that pretty much everywhere.
You're going to find it all over. They're very common. It's petty theft. Just they're always there. Like here in Toronto, they operate on the subways and stuff like that, like on the subway platforms and whatever. Just being aware is your best weapon against it, and not getting too engaged with people.
Right. Very good. We've talked about a lot of stuff here. Traveling can be stressful, for a lot of different reasons. Help me understand a good balance in being able to plan a good trip, but also still being able to actually go and experience it and have fun. What's that balance?
Having active awareness of what's going on while enjoying it. So what I mean by that is you should be able to put yourself in a position where you see the environment around you and you get a feeling for it, and you understand if there are threats or things that you need to pay attention to, and rolling with those things to better position yourself away from them, right? So if you see a sketchy dude, you're not going to walk right up to the sketchy dude. You're going to, adjust your course a little bit and stay away. And in doing so, you happen to go to this nice little coffee shop, or you happen to go into this, beautifully architectured church, or, or a castle or something like that. Or, sit down at a cafe, and you can control your movement and your pace and whatnot to make it difficult for other people to target you. Right. And that, coupled with your confidence in how you carry yourself, if you're constantly being, actively aware of your situation, someone checking you out to rob you is going to see that guy's switched on.
Right.
Probably the risk is not worth the reward. Look at that guy looking at his phone over there. That's who we want, because he's totally oblivious to what's happening. So being actively aware of what's going on, and when you recognize something that may be problematic, take a step to deal with it or to address it in some way. But that doesn't mean, you gotta be scared. It's just being aware. So when pothole in the ground, don't put your foot in it and trip on it, right? You're going to step around it. The same kind of thing is, like, if you're able to identify it as a hazard, do something about it and carry on, right? But that doesn't mean you have to freak out every time, something piques your interest. Just being aware and confidently dealing with it is kind of that balance. Packing light also helps. Traveling with family can sometimes be challenging because there's a lot of luggage and stuff like that. But as a general rule, if you can, on your trip over, I try and do carry-on only on the trip. But inside those carry-ons are like expandable, like duffel bags and stuff. So when you get to where you're going, that first leg of the journey is easy enough because you're not, carrying tons of luggage. But then once you're at a home base, or you're in your rental car and stuff like that, you're not carrying that stuff anymore. So it's a lot easier to then break it out. You have a duffel bag that's going to take your overflow or, your dirty laundry and your souvenirs. And then on your way back, it's not that big of a deal because your car or whatever is carrying that back. And you get to the airport and you check your luggage and life's a lot easier, right? But the
Right.
trip there, I find if you can, carry on only or check one bag for everybody, which has, a duffel bag extra and stuff like that. So little things that I've kind of whittled into and, and dialed in over the years.
Oh, yeah, for sure. No, I like that a lot. All right, so Boris, I've got 3 rapid fire questions here for you.
Yeah,
Say just kinda like whatever comes to mind. You don't have to be, tactical in your answers, just, shoot from the hip here. All right,
sure.
so what
Giver.
do Americans need to be considering when they travel internationally right now?
Not being American. Uh, um, to not put too fine a point on it and not get
Yeah,
political. It's just
yeah.
um, as long as since I was a little kid, I've seen the difference in treatment that Americans get versus other
Mm,
kind of Western nations. I was in Morocco once, and we were getting off the ferry, and there was an American couple, and then there was us Canadians, and we had Canadian passports, and they just like couldn't be less interested in us. They're just like,
mhm.
okay, Canadian, whatever, right? And the American couple, I mean, there's nothing wrong with them. There's nothing threatening about them, but it's like they got everything ripped apart. They were interrogated, why are you coming here and stuff. And it was just like, because they're American. So
Yeah,
like, um, as conflicts around the world grow and American involvement in those conflicts uh, grows and expands, uh, your the pool of places that Americans will be welcomed or not welcomed is going to change. So um, do the research before you go to a location to know what political issues there may be between that country and an American or a Canadian or a British or whatever, wherever you're from. And I know you have an American audience primarily, but generally speaking, whatever country you are from, you should do that pre-travel research to make sure that your country doesn't have issues with that country. Or
right,
if they do, at least you're aware of it.
right. Yeah, and you know how to handle it, you know what to expect. All
Yeah.
right, so now tell me what is something that you never leave home without?
Cash. Uh, funny enough, you know what? I don't leave home without some entry tools. So one of my
Mm,
favorites is this is the kind of OG Covert Companion from Covert Instruments. It's
mhm.
got some lock picks and stuff like that in it, and bypass tools. I carry this. I've actually never had anybody take a second look at it.
Hmm,
But it always goes in my carry-on. I throw it in with all my wires and adapters and stuff like that, right? Put it in there with a keychain and little things like paper clips and whatever. And they open it up and it's not a blade, so it's not like
right.
they're not concerned
Yeah.
about it. And nobody really knows what it is. They think it's a computer tool, like a
Mhm.
tool for your computer or your phone. And they're just like, yeah, okay. And off you go. So I always make sure I have that because you'd be surprised how often it comes in handy when you want to open a window of your hotel room or um, you want to check the bypass lock on your hotel room safe, which is not safe. And that's a whole other thing, but yeah, never trust those. And things like that. So yeah, for an emergency, it's a great piece of kit to have. And if you have the means to develop the skill set, I highly recommend it.
Very good. All right, so last rapid fire question here. Are there any security gadgets that are actually worth buying?
I don't know if a door wedge is a security gadget per se. Um,
Mhm.
I travel with two of them. Like I said, two of the rubber ones. I have a piece of paracord through the back of them, so that when they're in place, if I have to get out of the room in an emergency, like a fire or whatever, I can just grab the cord and I can pull it instead of wrestling with it and stuff like that. So um, that's almost non-negotiable. I always have those. Like I said, a good flashlight But like security, like things like geared, some of those extra locks, the ones that like that's like a hotel room lock and whatever, and they
Hmm.
fit inside the frame. They're okay, but they have to work for that particular door and that particular
Right.
door frame. They're not
Hmm.
very adaptable to installation variations and stuff like that, and door types and whatnot, depending on where you are in the world. So a door wedge, absolutely. And other than that, um, yeah. Other than that, other gadgets, not really. Just keeping stuff. Oh, this guy, a porta-pow from a
Oh
technical
yeah.
perspective.
Hmm.
It's also called a USB condom. When you go to uh, charge your phone or whatever, you got your regular charging cable, and it goes on the end, and then you can plug it into a random wall in, those charging hubs and stuff like that at airports and train stations. Sometimes those can do something called juice jacking, which can
Hmm.
either upload a virus to your device or download information. That prevents it. That only allows power to go, and not data. So investing in some of these is really good. You can pick them up at Sap Gear. So Sap Gear carries them, and they're great. They're inexpensive, and I carry them when I travel everywhere. So yeah.
Yeah, they fit in a bag and it's no big deal. It's not going to raise any
Yep.
alarms or anything like that. So yeah, that's great, man. Also, I really like the tip on your door stops. Having the paracord running through the back of it so you can pull it
Yeah.
out quick. Yeah, that's good stuff, man.
Yeah. Because it's great to have a secure door, but you also have to be able to get out if
Right.
there's a fire or something. So yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Boris, thank you so much for talking with us again. Tell everybody where they can find your books, where they can find you on social media and all that good stuff.
So we're at www.truenorthtradecraft.ca, on Instagram at True North Tradecraft, and then on Amazon you can pick up any of our books. So we've got our disaster preparedness guide. We've got checks and go bags, like you mentioned, negative space, and our newest one, Travelcraft. So check it out. If you already have a copy, leave a review on Amazon for us. That's how
Hmm.
we get more recognition and expand our reach and help other people. So thank you very much for having me, Andy. Really, really appreciate it.
Yeah, man, I appreciate what you're doing, and I'm looking forward to whatever the future has in store for you, buddy.
Thanks a lot, man. We'll talk again soon.